The dark clouds moved across the sky like a thick blanket. Marcus Chen looked up and felt the first drops of rain on his face. He pulled his jacket tighter and watched his alien classmates setting up their camp. The Galactic Academy survival course was supposed to be easy. At least, that's what everyone said. Marcus was the only human in a group of 12 alien students. They were all from advanced civilizations that had been traveling space for thousands of years. Earth had only just joined the galactic community 5 years ago. "This is so primitive," complained Zix441, a Zephyrian student. Her body looked like living crystal, changing colors as she spoke. "Why can't we use our climate suits?" Professor Thane9, their instructor, stood nearby like a gray mountain. The Titanid was 8 feet tall with rock-like skin. "The rules are simple. You have basic tools only. No technology. No special equipment. Build shelter. Find food. Survive for 3 days." Marcus unpacked his small backpack. Inside was a tiny shovel, some rope, a knife, and a waterproof sheet. Everyone got the same things. He looked around at his teammates. The ethereals floated a few feet off the ground. They looked like glowing clouds of gas in human shape. Vel Prime spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. "We do not understand this exercise. Our people live in the sky cities. We have never touched solid ground before this class." 3 mechanoid students worked together, their metal bodies clicking and whirring. They communicated through light signals that flashed across their chrome heads. Red 7 turned to the group. "Our analysis shows this exercise is inefficient. Proper shelter requires industrial materials and automated construction systems." The collectively students stood in a tight circle. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. When one spoke, the others nodded at exactly the same time. "We are confused. Our hive mind cannot function properly when separated from the home network. Individual survival makes no sense to us." Marcus had studied all these species in school. The Zephyrians built beautiful crystal cities that controlled every aspect of weather and temperature. The ethereals lived on gas giant planets in floating bubble cities. The mechanoids used machines for everything and rarely did physical work themselves. The collectively shared thoughts and resources through mental connections across their whole civilization. None of them had ever been cold, wet, or hungry in their lives. The rain started falling harder. Marcus looked at the land around them. They were in a small valley with hills on both sides. A little stream ran down the middle. The ground was mostly flat, but sloped slightly toward the water. "We should start building shelter," Marcus said. "This rain is going to get worse." Zix441's crystal body flashed orange with annoyance. "Human, your species just learned to fly between stars. Perhaps you should observe and learn from your betters." The Zephyrians began working together. They touched the ground and started growing crystal formations. Marcus watched as beautiful blue spikes rose from the dirt, but as soon as the rain hit them, the crystals began to dissolve and crumble. "Impossible!" Zix441's colors turned dark red. "Our crystal growth always works." "Not in acid rain," Marcus said quietly. He had noticed the chemical smell in the air. This planet's rain was slightly acidic, normal for many worlds, but destructive to Zephyrian crystal structures. The ethereals tried next. They swirled together and created walls of compressed gas and energy. The walls glowed blue and green, very beautiful to watch. But the rain passed right through them. Water couldn't be stopped by gas, no matter how dense. Vel Prime's form flickered with frustration. "The moisture disrupts our energy patterns. We cannot maintain solid barriers in this atmospheric condition." The mechanoids pulled out their small tools and started building something that looked like a metal tent. They worked with perfect precision, measuring everything twice. But sparks began flying when rainwater got into their electronic components. Red 7's lights flashed angry red patterns. "System failure. Water damage to primary circuits. Cannot complete construction protocols." They collectively tried to share the problem among their group mind, but being wet and cold made it hard for them to think clearly. They started arguing with each other for the first time Marcus had ever seen. "The environmental stress disrupts our mental connections," one of them said, sounding lost and frightened. The rain was getting heavier now. Thunder rolled across the sky, and lightning flashed in the distance. All the alien students looked miserable. Their species had never dealt with weather like this. Marcus pulled out his waterproof sheet and looked around again. The stream was getting bigger as more rain fell. Water was starting to pool in low areas around their camp. He could see the real problem now. Professor Thane 9 watched from under a large tree about 50 feet away. The Titanid had made it clear he would only help if someone was about to die. This was supposed to be a learning experience. Perhaps the human has some primitive solution, Zix441 said. Her voice dripped with sarcasm, but Marcus could hear the worry underneath. Marcus knelt down and felt the soil. It was getting muddy fast. He looked at how the water flowed across the ground. Earth had taught him many things about surviving outdoors. His grandfather had taken him camping since he was little. They had been caught in storms before. The first rule of camping, his grandfather always said, is that water always wins. Don't fight it. Work with it. Marcus stood up and brushed mud off his hands. All the alien students were looking at him now. Some seemed hopeful. Others still looked doubtful that a human could succeed where they had failed. Okay, Marcus said. Let me show you how we do things on Earth. He picked up his small shovel and walked to where water was starting to pool. The rain drummed harder on his head and shoulders. This was going to be a long night, but Marcus had been in worse situations before. His species had spent thousands of years learning how to stay alive on a dangerous planet. It was time to put that experience to use. The storm hit harder than anyone expected. Rain pounded down like hammers, and the wind howled through the valley. Marcus watched his alien classmates struggle with growing desperation. Zix441 tried to build crystal shelter 3 more times. Each attempt dissolved faster than the last. Her body colors kept shifting between angry red and worried blue. The other Zephyrians huddled together, their crystal forms crackling with stress. This is impossible, Zix441 said, her voice shaking. Our crystal technology has worked for 10,000 years. How can simple water defeat it? Marcus wiped rain from his eyes. It's not simple water. Smell the air. This rain has acid in it, probably from volcanic activity or certain types of plants. Your crystals can't handle the chemical reaction. The Zephyrians stared at him. They had never considered that water could be different on different planets. Their controlled environments always provided pure H2O. The Ethereals were having an even worse time. Vel Prime and the other gas-form students kept losing cohesion in the heavy moisture. Their glowing bodies flickered like candles in the wind. We cannot maintain our energy matrices, Vel Prime whispered. His voice was getting weaker. The water particles interfere with our plasma bonds. We are dissolving. One of the smaller ethereal students started to fade completely. The others rushed to help him, but their energy was scattering too. Marcus realized they might actually die if this continued much longer. The mechanoids had given up on their metal shelter after the third electrical fire. Red 7's chrome head was blackened from a small explosion. Their precise tools lay scattered in the mud, sparking and smoking. All systems compromised, Red 7 reported in a flat voice. Water infiltration causing cascade failures. Cannot compute solutions with damaged processors. The 3 mechanoids stood motionless in the rain like broken statues. Their programming didn't include backup plans for total system failure. They had never been without their computers before. The collectively was falling apart completely. The 4 students who normally moved and spoke as one unit were now arguing and crying. Their mental connection was breaking down under stress. Cannot think clearly, one said. The cold interferes with neural links, said another. Individual consciousness is frightening, said the third. We were never taught to be alone, said the fourth. Marcus felt sorry for all of them. These were some of the smartest beings in the galaxy, but they had never faced real physical hardship. Their advanced civilizations had protected them from every discomfort. The human looked around the campsite. Water was pooling everywhere now. The little stream had become a rushing river. Their supplies were getting soaked despite the waterproof bags. The temperature was dropping fast. Professor Thane 9 still stood under his tree, watching. The Titanid's rock-like face showed no emotion, but Marcus thought he saw concern in the ancient alien's eyes. This was supposed to be a learning exercise, not a death trap. Marcus made his decision. He couldn't watch his classmates suffer like this. Everyone, listen to me, he called out over the storm. Gather around. We need to work together. The alien students looked at him with mixed expressions. Some seemed hopeful. Others appeared skeptical that a primitive human could help them. Your human technology is even more basic than what we carry. Zix441 said. She was trying to sound superior, but her crystal body was shaking from the cold. That's exactly why I can help, Marcus replied. My species never had advanced technology to rely on. We had to learn to survive with nothing but our hands and brains. Vel Prime's glowing form flickered weakly. What do you propose, human? Marcus knelt down and scooped up a handful of mud. First, we need to understand the real problem. It's not just the rain. Look at the ground. He pointed around the campsite. Water was flowing in several directions, creating muddy streams that cut through their area. The spot they had chosen for camp was actually in a natural drainage path. Water always flows downhill, Marcus explained. Always. It finds the easiest path and follows it. Right now, that path goes right through our camp. Red 7's damaged lights flickered with interest. You suggest we relocate to higher ground. Too late for that now, Marcus said. But we can redirect the water flow. We can work with it instead of fighting it. The alien students looked confused. Their species had always used force to overcome natural obstacles. The idea of working with nature instead of conquering it was foreign to them. Marcus pulled out his small shovel. This tool might look primitive to you, but it can solve our biggest problem. We need to dig. Dig? The collectively students asked in unison, their mental connection strengthening slightly through shared confusion. Drainage channels, Marcus explained. We dig small trenches to guide the water where we want it to go, away from our shelter area. Zix441's crystal form flashed with disbelief. You want to move dirt with that tiny tool? Our crystal shapers can reshape entire landscapes. Your crystal shapers don't work in acid rain, Marcus pointed out gently. But this shovel works in any weather. It's simple technology, but it's reliable. He started digging a narrow trench along one side of their camp area. The work was hard and muddy, but Marcus had done similar jobs many times. His grandfather had taught him how to dig proper drainage around their cabin every spring when the snow melted. The alien students watched with growing amazement. The human was actually moving water with nothing but a small tool and physical effort. It seemed impossible, but they could see it working. The water is following his trench, whispered one of the ethereals. Gravity-based fluid dynamics, murmured Red 7. Elegant in its simplicity. Marcus paused in his digging and looked up at his classmates. They were all staring at him with new expressions, not mockery or skepticism, but curiosity and hope. This is just the beginning, Marcus said with a small smile. Wait until you see what we can do for shelter. Marcus continued digging his drainage trench while the alien students watched in fascination. The small channel was already redirecting water away from their camp area. What had seemed like magic to them was just basic engineering to the human. How did you know to do that? Asked Vel Prime. The ethereal's energy form was steadier now that he wasn't standing in pooling water. Practice, Marcus said, not stopping his work. My grandfather used to say that humans learned everything the hard way. We made every mistake possible before we figured out what worked. He paused and pointed to the hills around them. See how the water flows naturally? It wants to go downhill toward that stream. We just need to help it get there faster before it can pool up and make our lives miserable. Zix441 knelt down beside the trench, careful not to let the acidic water touch her crystal body. This is actually working, but it seems so crude compared to our environmental controls. Sometimes crude is better, Marcus replied. Your environmental controls are amazing, but what happens when they break? This trench will work as long as gravity exists. Red 7 processed this information with his damaged computing systems. Redundancy through simplicity. Fascinating design philosophy. Marcus finished the first drainage channel and started on another one. The alien students began to understand that he was creating a whole network of water flow, each trench connected to the next, guiding rainwater in a specific pattern. It's like a puzzle, said one of the collectively students. Each piece has a purpose. Exactly, Marcus said. Now, who wants to learn how to build a real shelter? The aliens gathered around eagerly. Their earlier doubts about human capability were fading fast. Marcus pulled out his waterproof sheet and looked around the campsite. First rule of shelter, location matters more than materials. We need high ground, but not too high. Protection from wind, but not in a place where trees might fall on us. He pointed to a spot about 20 feet from their original camp location. That's our building site. It's on a slight rise, so water will drain away naturally. Those rocks will block the worst wind. And see that big tree? It's far enough away to be safe, but close enough to provide some wind protection. The alien students had never considered such factors. Their species built homes with technology that could overcome any environmental challenge. Second rule, Marcus continued, work with what you have, not what you wish you had. He gathered the materials each student had brought, 12 waterproof sheets, rope, and various small tools. We can't make a palace, but we can make something that works. Marcus found 4 strong branches that had fallen from trees. These will be our corner posts. But first, we need to prepare the ground. He showed them how to clear away rocks and debris from the building site. The alien students worked awkwardly at first, unused to physical labor, but they learned quickly. "Why are we moving these small stones?" asked a Zephyrian. "They seem insignificant." "Try sleeping on them tonight and tell me they're insignificant," Marcus laughed. Comfort matters when you're trying to survive. Next, Marcus demonstrated how to dig small holes for the corner posts. The aliens were amazed at how much difference a few inches of depth made in stability. "The posts need to be angled slightly," Marcus explained, setting the first one in place. "This is going to be a sloped roof, so water runs off instead of collecting on top." Red 7's lights flashed with understanding. Angle optimization for fluid drainage. Our architects never consider such primitive concerns, but the physics are sound. Marcus tied rope between the posts to create a frame. Then came the critical part, stretching the waterproof sheets over the frame to make a roof. "This is where the slope really matters," Marcus said, pulling one corner of the sheet higher than the others. "See? The water hits the sheet and runs down to the low corner, then drips off. It can't pool anywhere." The alien students watched water streaming off their new roof in steady rivulets. It was simple, but it worked perfectly. "It's like an artificial mountain," said Vel Prime with wonder. "You're copying the shape of natural landforms." "Humans learned a lot by watching nature," Marcus agreed. "Rivers, mountains, trees, animals, they all have solutions to the problems we face." One of the collectively students raised a thin hand. "But this structure seems so temporary, so fragile. Our buildings last for centuries." Marcus smiled and patted one of the support posts. "This shelter will last as long as we need it to. Sometimes temporary is better than permanent. We can move it, modify it, rebuild it if something breaks. Your permanent buildings can't do that." The rain was still falling hard, but now it rolled off their sloped roof and into the drainage channels Marcus had dug. The campsite was becoming drier by the minute. Zix 441 stood under the shelter and looked up at the waterproof sheet above her head. "I cannot believe something so simple is keeping me dry." "Simple doesn't mean stupid," Marcus said. "Some of humanity's best inventions are simple. The wheel, the lever, fire. Basic ideas that solve big problems." Red 7 was analyzing the shelter's construction with his partially functional sensors. "The load distribution is inefficient by our standards, but adequate for the task. The materials are crude, but sufficient. The design prioritizes function over form." "That's human engineering in a nutshell," Marcus laughed. "Good enough is good enough." The alien students were beginning to understand a completely different approach to problem solving. Instead of using advanced technology to force nature to obey, humans worked with natural principles to achieve their goals. "This is remarkable," admitted Vel Prime. "We have been approaching survival incorrectly. We assumed our advanced methods would work in any situation." Marcus was already planning the next improvements to their shelter. "This is just the beginning. We're dry now, but we also need to stay warm, and we need to think about food and clean water. Earth taught my species that surviving isn't just about having shelter, it's about understanding how everything connects together." As if responding to his words, the storm grew even stronger. Wind howled around their valley, and lightning flashed overhead. But inside their simple shelter, the alien students were warm and dry for the first time since the rain began. They looked at their human classmate with new respect and growing curiosity about what other primitive knowledge he might possess. The basic shelter was working, but Marcus could see they needed more improvements. The alien students were dry, but the ground underneath them was still cold and muddy. The wind was finding gaps in their construction. They needed a complete solution, not just a temporary fix. Okay, everyone, lesson 2, Marcus said, looking around at his eager alien classmates. We have shelter from the rain, but we're not done yet. We need elevation, insulation, and wind protection. He pointed to the muddy ground under their feet. Who here has ever been cold before? The alien students looked at each other uncertainly. Most of them shook their heads. Cold steals your energy, Marcus explained. It makes you tired, makes it hard to think clearly, and can even kill you. We need to get off this wet ground. Marcus walked to a pile of stones near the stream. The water had washed them clean, and they were various sizes. We're going to build a raised floor. But I can't do this alone. I need everyone to help, and I want each of you to use your natural abilities. Zix 441's crystal body pulsed with interest. How can we help? Our technologies have all failed. Your technologies failed, but your natural abilities are still working fine, Marcus said with a grin. Zix, you and the other Zephyrians are incredibly strong. You can lift stones that would take 3 humans to move. The Zephyrians looked surprised. They had never thought of their physical strength as useful for manual labor. Marcus pointed to the ethereals floating nearby. Vel Prime, your people can fly. You can place materials in spots the rest of us can't reach easily. Then he turned to the damaged mechanoids. Red 7, even with your computers partly broken, you can still calculate angles and measurements better than any of us. Finally, he looked at the collectively students. And you 4 can coordinate group work better than any other species. You can make sure everyone works together efficiently. The alien students began to understand. Marcus wasn't asking them to abandon their strengths. He was showing them how to use those strengths in new ways. But how do we combine such different abilities? Asked one of the collectively. That's the secret, Marcus said. On Earth, humans had to learn to work together because we weren't the strongest or fastest or smartest at everything. We got good at teamwork because we had to. Marcus started organizing the work. Zephyrians, start gathering the biggest stones you can find. We need them for the foundation corners. Ethereals, scout the area from above and spot the best materials. Mechanoids, help me calculate how many stones we need and what size. Collectively, coordinate everyone's efforts so we don't duplicate work. The alien students threw themselves into the task with enthusiasm they had never shown for schoolwork. This was hands-on learning, and they were starting to enjoy it. Zix 441 lifted a stone that weighed more than Marcus did, carrying it easily in her crystal arms. This is strange. Physical labor is actually satisfying somehow. That's because you're building something real, Marcus said. Your mind knows you're creating something useful with your own hands. Humans call it pride in craftsmanship. Vel Prime and the other ethereals floated overhead, calling down information about where to find the best materials. Their aerial perspective was incredibly valuable for planning the construction. There is a fallen tree 40 meters north with excellent straight branches, Vel Prime reported. Also, there are flat stones near the stream that would work well for your raised floor. Red 7 was calculating load distributions and structural requirements despite his damaged processors. Based on available materials and estimated loads, I recommend a foundation grid with stone supports every 1.2 meters. The collectively students moved between the different groups, making sure everyone understood what the others were doing. Their natural coordination abilities were perfect for managing a complex construction project. As they worked together, Marcus taught them more human engineering principles. See how we're placing these stones? He said, showing them the foundation pattern. Each one supports the others. If one fails, the rest can still hold the weight. Redundancy again. He demonstrated how to create a level surface using rocks of different sizes. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to work. We fill gaps with small stones, use big ones for main support. The alien students were learning that human engineering wasn't about precision, it was about adaptation and practical solutions. Next, Marcus showed them how to create raised sleeping platforms using branches and rope. The ethereals positioned the longest branches, while the Zephyrians held them steady. The mechanoids calculated the best spacing, and the collectively coordinated the rope tying process. This keeps us off the cold, wet ground, Marcus explained. Air can flow underneath for insulation, and if water somehow gets into our shelter, we won't be lying in it. For wind protection, Marcus guided them in adding wall panels to their shelter. They used extra waterproof sheets stretched between additional support posts. But we need to be careful about airflow, he warned. Completely sealing ourselves in would be dangerous. We need fresh air, but we want to block the cold wind. Red 7's lights flickered with understanding. Controlled ventilation while maintaining thermal barriers. Elegant compromise between competing requirements. As the day progressed, their shelter transformed from a simple rain cover into a complete survival habitat. It had a sloped roof for water drainage, raised floors for warmth and dryness, walls for wind protection, and careful ventilation for safety. The alien students stood back and looked at what they had built together. It wasn't beautiful like Zephyrian crystal architecture or high-tech like mechanoid constructions, but it was functional, comfortable, and most importantly, it was working. "I cannot believe we built this," said Zix441, her crystal body glowing with satisfaction. "We built it together," Marcus corrected. "Everyone contributed their strengths. That's what teamwork really means." As the storm continued outside, the alien students sat inside their human-designed shelter, warm and dry. They were learning that sometimes the best solutions weren't the most advanced ones. They were the ones that worked reliably when everything else failed. Professor Thane 9 walked closer to their shelter, the first time he had moved from his tree all day. Even through the rain and wind, they could see approval in the ancient Titanid's expression. "Well done," he called to them. "You have learned something valuable today." But Marcus knew they weren't finished learning yet. The night was still young, and survival required more than just staying dry. The storm raged through the night, but inside their shelter, the alien students slept peacefully for the first time since arriving on the planet. Marcus lay awake for a while, listening to the rain drumming on their roof and flowing through his drainage channels. Everything was working exactly as it should. When morning came, the storm had not finally passed. Bright sunlight streamed through the valley, and the air smelled fresh and clean. The alien students emerged from their shelter, stretching and looking around in amazement. "We survived," whispered Vel Prime, his energy form bright and stable. "More than survived," said Zix441. "We were actually comfortable." Their campsite was completely dry. Water had flowed away from their shelter through Marcus's drainage system, leaving no puddles or mud. The raised sleeping platforms had kept them warm all night. The sloped roof had shed every drop of rain without a single leak. Other campsites in the valley weren't as fortunate. Through their scopes, they could see where other student groups had struggled. Some had abandoned their camps entirely during the storm. Professor Thane 9 approached their shelter, his massive feet splashing through the stream that had returned to its normal size. The ancient Titanid examined their construction carefully, walking around the perimeter and studying the drainage channels. "Impressive," he said in his deep, gravelly voice. "Tell me, Marcus Chen of Earth, where did you learn these techniques?" Marcus shrugged, feeling slightly embarrassed by the attention. "My grandfather taught me when I was little. He learned from his grandfather, who learned from his grandfather. It's just basic camping knowledge on Earth." The Titanid's rock-like features showed what might have been surprise. Basic knowledge. You solved problems that defeated some of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations using basic knowledge? "Well, yes, sir," Marcus said. "Earth is a rough planet. Storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, blizzards. Humans had to learn to survive all kinds of weather, or we would have gone extinct millions of years ago." Professor Thane 9 nodded slowly. "I see. And this knowledge is common among your people?" "Every human learned some version of it," Marcus confirmed. "Maybe not everyone knows how to build shelters, but we all understand the basic principles. Work with nature instead of fighting it. Plan for things to go wrong. Use what you have. Keep solutions simple and reliable." The alien students gathered around to listen. They had been thinking about everything they had learned during the night. Red 7 spoke first, his damaged lights flickering in patterns Marcus had learned meant deep thought. "We have been considering the implications of yesterday's events. Our species achieved interstellar travel through technological superiority. We assumed this made us superior in all ways. But our technology made us weak," added Zix441. "When it failed, we had no backup plans, no basic skills to fall back on." One of the collectively students stepped forward. "We are a hive mind. We share all knowledge instantly, yet none of us knew how to dig a simple drainage ditch." Vel Prime's gaseous form pulsed with what Marcus had learned was embarrassment. "Our people control the weather on entire planets. But we couldn't figure out how to stay dry in a rainstorm. Professor Thane 9 listened to his students with growing interest. Continue. The human didn't just solve our immediate problem, said another Zephyrian. He taught us a completely different way of thinking. We have been so focused on complex solutions that we forgot simple ones might work better. Marcus felt uncomfortable being the center of attention. It's not that your way is wrong. Your technologies are amazing. I could never build a crystal city or control the weather, but different situations need different approaches. That's precisely the point, Professor Thane 9 said. This exercise was designed to test adaptability without technological assistance. In my 40 years of teaching this course, no group has ever performed as well as yours did yesterday. The alien students looked at Marcus with new expressions, not just gratitude, but genuine respect. There's something else, Professor Thane 9 continued. This was not actually a survival course for students. It was an evaluation exercise for the Galactic Exploration Council. Everyone fell silent. The Council has been debating whether to include humans in deep space exploration missions. Many species argued that Earth technology is too primitive, that humans would be a liability in dangerous situations. Marcus felt his heart sink. He had always dreamed of joining an exploration crew. However, the Titanid continued, after observing yesterday's events, I will be recommending that humans be fast-tracked for exploration team leadership positions. Leadership, gasped Vel Prime. Consider what happened, Professor Thane 9 explained. When advanced technology failed, when perfect knowledge proved useless, when environmental stress overwhelmed sophisticated thinking, the human adapted. Not only did he solve the problem, but he taught others to solve it with him. The professor gestured toward their shelter. This structure represents something our civilizations have lost: practical wisdom, the ability to succeed with limited resources, leadership that brings out the best in others rather than simply commanding them. Red 7 processed this information. You are suggesting that technological advancement and survival capability are not the same thing. Exactly, Professor Thane 9 said. When exploration teams encounter the unexpected, and they always do, they need members who can adapt, improvise, and find solutions that work with available resources. Earth humans have spent their entire evolutionary history doing exactly that. Marcus found his voice. Are you saying? I'm saying the galaxy needs what humans can offer, the Titanid said firmly. Not just your resourcefulness, but your teaching ability, your talent for bringing different species together and helping them work as a team. Zix 441's crystal body flashed with excitement. Will Marcus be assigned to an exploration mission? Better than that, Professor Thane 9 smiled, an expression that looked strange on his rock-like features. The Academy is creating a new program, Human Survival Instructors. We want to teach these skills to students from every species in the galaxy. The alien students cheered, a sound Marcus had never heard from any of them before. But sir, Marcus said, feeling overwhelmed, I'm just a student myself. I don't know enough to teach others. You know more than you realize, Professor Thane 9 replied. Yesterday, you taught some of the galaxy's brightest minds that there are different kinds of intelligence, that sometimes the species that struggled the hardest on their home planet have the most to offer when facing new challenges. As they packed up their camp, the alien students kept asking Marcus questions about Earth survival techniques. They wanted to learn everything: how to find water, how to make fire, how to build different kinds of shelters for different environments. Why are humans so good at this? Asked a collectively student. Marcus thought about it as he carefully coiled his rope. I think it's because Earth never let us get comfortable. Every time humans thought we had everything figured out, our planet would throw something new at us. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions. We had to stay flexible or die. And now, that flexibility makes you valuable to space exploration, Vel Prime observed. Maybe, Marcus said. But the most important thing I learned yesterday is that every species has something valuable to offer. We just need to find ways to combine our different strengths. As they walked back toward the Academy transport, Professor Thane 9 fell into step beside Marcus. There's one more thing, the Titanid said quietly. The Galactic Council wants to know if Earth would be interested in hosting a survival training facility, a place where beings from across the galaxy could come to learn what humans call primitive skills. Marcus looked back at the valley where they had weathered the storm together. Their shelter still stood, a simple structure that had brought together some of the most advanced minds in the galaxy. "I think my grandfather would like that idea," Marcus said with a smile. "Good," Professor Thane 9 replied, "because yesterday you proved that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from." The transport lifted off, carrying them back to the academy. But Marcus knew this was really just the beginning. Earth's long, difficult journey to the stars had taught humanity lessons the galaxy was finally ready to learn.